One day, an elderly man dressed in overalls and with only one arm smiled at me from under the awning in front of the farmer's market building. I smiled back and he came over to me. He asked me a question in very slow French, and to my surprise, I understood him. He'd asked me, "Where are you from?" And so I answered in French, "I am American." He replied, "New York!" And I said, "San Francisco." He replied, "In New York you have the Statue of Liberty." And I replied, "Yes, and she was made in Colmar." Colmar is the French town in which our Statue of Liberty was made. She was shipped to New York in pieces and reassembled there. The old man's eyes lit up that I knew this important connection between France and the United States. And then he said a few more things, but I had to reply that I didn't understand. And he smiled, and we went our separate ways. But I'd had a 2-minute conversation with a French person. This was the most I had spoken to anyone in the 2 months that I had lived there. One day, after 3 months of living in Karsak-Kayak, I told my friend, who was a flight attendant for Air France, that I was lonely. She said she would come visit me. You're probably wondering how I ended up with an Air France flight attendant as one of my dearest friends. Once, on a flight back to the US from France, I went back to the galley area of the aircraft to stretch my legs and started having a nice conversation with my flight attendant. She mentioned that she and the other flight attendants had a couple of days off once we landed in San Francisco, and they asked me where they should go. I said they should rent a car and go to Carmel and Monterey. Then I thought about it and decided that maybe I would also like to go to Carmel and Monterey, and I invited them to drive along the coast with me. We had a wonderful day exploring the area, and that flight attendant, Marie Florence, and I have been friends ever since. She drove 5 hours from her home in Suresnes outside Paris to come see me in Karsak-Kayak. When she arrived, we went to Sarlat for dinner in a lovely restaurant at the base of one of the stone buildings of the medieval town. We walked down the steps to the cave-like space, all blonde stone. It felt like being in the vault of a winery. When the waiter came over and took our order, after he left I remarked that I hadn't understood a single thing he had said. Marie said, "Their accent here is very strong." I could barely understand him either. It was in that moment that I decided that no matter how hard it would be, I had to move to Paris, otherwise my loneliness would continue. So I began looking online for apartments in Paris.